recording. So welcome everyone to Tutor Tuesday. We're gonna go ahead and get started here. I see we've got some topics on chat. We've got reading, trigonometry. So yeah, since we've done a lot of math recently, I guess let's start with reading and writing. One of the main things on the SAT is usually identifying central ideas and details. So maybe one thing we'll do is pull up some questions from that section. And let me paste in this problem. Let me put it in the chat as well. Will the SAT give you a notepad? Yeah, on the SAT you'll have a scratch sheet of paper, and you have to bring your own pencil or pen. I'm not sure if they give it for the reading section, but definitely for the math. Why don't you guys take a second to read this question and put in the chat what answer we're thinking. I'm seeing no response. Must be a tough one. Let's take a look. This one's saying, what does the text most strongly suggest about Sleep No More's use of its performance space? So as I'm reading this question, that's really what I should be focusing on. There's this something called Sleep No More, and how does it use its performance space? Okay, so it says it's a most recent iteration of the immersive theater experience, Sleep No More, premiered in New York City in 2011, transforms its performance space, a five-story warehouse, into a 1930s era hotel. Audience members who wander through the labyrinthine venue at their own pace and follow the actors as they play out simultaneous interweaving narrative loops, confront the impossibility of experiencing the production in its entirety. The play's refusal of narrative coherence thus hinges on the sense of spatial fragmentation that the venue's immense and intricate layout generates. Seems confusing. It looks like they didn't make it like a traditional play. It's kind of you go through the warehouse or you go through I guess the hotel in the setting at your own pace. So let's go through each of these answer choices. I'm gonna probably look for something that makes it like confusing, complex. The choice of a New York City venue likely enabled the play's creators to experiment with the use of theatrical space in a way that venues from earlier productions could not. Well, I don't really think that's the main point here. New York City. The main point is that like they transformed their space into somewhere that you could not go and just like watch it like traditional theater. Audience members likely find the experience of the play disappointing because they generally cannot make their way through the entire venue. The last part is true. They cannot make their way through the entire venue, or at least maybe they can, but they can't see everything that's going on at once. But there's nothing to suggest that they find it disappointing. The production's dependence on a particular performance environment would likely make it difficult to reproduce exactly in a different theatrical space. This seems like our most likely answer. And audience members who navigate the space according to recommended itinerary will likely have a better grasp of the play's narrative. There was nothing mentioned about itinerary. Actually, it's kind of at your own pace. So yeah, this depends on the fact that you have a large venue and they transformed it into a hotel for the quote unquote play. It's going to be very difficult to do this on a traditional theater stage. So it's going to be answer choice C. Let's go over another central ideas and details type question. So once again, I'll give you guys a second to read this. It's a similar type of question. It says here based on the text. So we're going to be looking at the passage again. It's always usually the answers are in the passage. Based on the text, how do people in the capital of Mexico most likely regard Dr. Malsifrido? Okay, let's see. So I'm just gonna pay close attention to this character, Dr. Malsifrido. It is a saying in the capital of Mexico that Dr. Malsifrido carries more family secrets under his hat than any archbishop. Okay, so he seems secretive. The doctor's hat is appropriately enough uncommonly capacious, rising very high and sinking so low that it seems to be supported by his ears and eyebrows, and it has a furry look as if been brushed the wrong way, which is perhaps what happens to it if it's ever brushed at all. When the doctor takes it off, the family secrets do not fly out like a flock of parrots, but remain nicely bottled up beneath a dome of old and highly polished ivory. He seems very secretive, so let's look at the answer choices. Many have come to tolerate him despite his disheveled appearance. Yes, he has a disheveled appearance, but there's nothing that mentions like tolerance. Few feel concerned that he will divulge their confidences. I mean, this is definitely something that I could claim because um, he's very secretive. So I'm going to go with B for now. Some dislike how freely he discusses his own family. Actually, C is the opposite of what we see. And D, most would be unimpressed by him if it were not for his professional expertise. We don't really see anything about people being impressed or unimpressed or his much discussion on his expertise. So even though B is saying things a little bit not in the exact wording that I said, like secretive, it's the same thing. Few feel concerned that he will divulge their confidences. Like they can confide in him, they can tell secrets, and he's not going to say anything. Okay, let's see what other reading categories we have here. So that's central ideas and details. We have other questions where you might be making more inferences. So I'll pull up some of those. Um, this one is not too bad at all. You have two PSAT books, one Barron's and one Kaplan. Are they digital PSAT books? Like for the digital PSAT? Um, I've heard that Barron's tends to be a little bit more difficult. Honestly, I don't think it matters which one you start with, but I would definitely throw in Khan Academy if you haven't, because it's a great free resource. This next question here is an inferences question. Which choice most logically completes the text? So it says researchers recently found that disruptions to an enjoyable experience, like a short series of advertisements during a television show, would often increase viewers' reported enjoyment. Seems like it goes against what I would expect, but that's what they say. Suspecting that disruptions to an unpleasant experience would have the opposite effect, the researchers had participants listen to construction noise for 30 minutes and anticipated that those whose listening experience was frequently interrupted with short breaks of silence would thus blank. Well, let's see. If we disrupt the enjoyable experience, somehow they reported higher enjoyment. Maybe if we disrupt the unpleasant experience, it would reduce their enjoyment. So A says find the disruptions more irritating as time went on, which seems like a pretty good answer choice, but it's not going to be A for this one because this is talking about as time went on. The the paragraph that we have here just says viewers reported enjoyment. So probably at the end when they had to report whether they enjoyed it or not, their enjoyment went up. But it's not as time went on. Right? Would they rate the listening experience as more negative than those whose listening experience was uninterrupted? This makes a good comparison. It compares the people that were interrupted frequently with people whose listening experience was uninterrupted. And yes, we would expect if they were interrupted a lot, they would rate the experience more negative, or they would have less enjoyment. That seems like our best answer. There's nothing to suggest anything about the time that it took or the volume. And again, we aren't looking at this as time went on. We're just looking at this, how would they rate it? They rate it positively or negatively. Let's do one more inferences question. Okay. Many of William Shakespeare's tragedies address broad themes that still appeal to today's audiences. For instance, Romeo and Juliet, which is set in the Italy of Shakespeare's time, tackles the themes of parents versus children and love versus hate. And the play continues to be read and produced widely around the world. But understanding Shakespeare's so-called history plays can require a knowledge of several centuries of English history. Consequently, blank. So looks like for this one, we're comparing Shakespeare's tragedies and how they're still appeal to today's audiences to Shakespeare's history plays, which can require a large knowledge of several centuries. So consequently means what? Uh, Kind of like a logical conclusion or like a therefore. Yeah, result. Looking at So what I see here is that the tragedies are very widely appealing, but history plays require a large knowledge. So let's see the answer choices. Many theater goers and readers today are likely to find Shakespeare's history plays less engaging than the tragedies. Well, yeah, I mean, that seems like a good answer choice right off the bat because it compares history plays and tragedies and the level of engagement. And seems like tragedies are much more accessible and the history plays are um, they're kind of harder to read. So nothing else really compares history plays to tragedies in terms of like today's readers. So yeah, it's gonna be A. Someone's asking where I'm from. I'm from the Northeast, United States, but I go to school in Texas now. Who wants to do trigonometry? I know you guys mentioned that earlier. Yeah, it's evening time. Put in our next question. Nice. So this is labeled as trig, but it's kind of more like geometry, I think. It says a graphic designer is creating a logo. The logo is in the figure above. The logo is in the shape of a trapezoid and consists of three congruent equilateral triangles. If the perimeter of the logo is 20 centimeters, what is the combined area of the shaded regions of the logo? Okay. So the perimeter is 20, right? And there's how many sides? One, two, three, four, five sides. So each of these sides should be a length of 4. Then we have equilateral triangles with side lengths of 4. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to draw one of those equilateral triangles, the base of 4. I could also split that equilateral triangle in half. Uh, it's like so, to make it a 30, 60, 90 triangle. We have a 30-degree angle right here on the top, 60-degree angle over here. Then I know that the height of each triangle is equal to 2 root 3. And this side, of course, is 4. So now going back to my triangles, one of these triangles is equal to 1/2. The area is equal to 1/2 base times height, which is 1/2. The base is 4. The height is 2 root 3. That's equal to, that simplifies to, it looks like 4 root 3. So then we have two triangles. So triangle times 2 is equal to 4 root 3 times 2. And that's going to be 8 root 3, which is going to give us answer choice C. Okay. Nice. Nice little triangle problem. I got another one for you guys that's sort of similar. We have a perimeter of an equilateral triangle is 624 centimeters. So if the perimeter is 624, then the side length is equal to 624 by 3, which is going to be what, like 208. Now, of course, we want to get the height of the triangle. Yes, and I see someone's got it already. Height of the triangle, we can split this up into 104. Or maybe I should make a new diagram. This becomes 60, 30, and a 90-degree angle. And this becomes 104, right? That half of the triangle. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, this is the hypotenuse double that small leg. And this one is square root of 3 times that. It becomes 104 root 3. 104 root 3 is equivalent to the height of k root 3. So k equals 104. Yeah. Yeah, we ended up landing on C for that last question. That one was asking for the area. If it were asking for the height, we would have gotten 2 root 3. This one was asking for the height, so it's k root 3, and we got k equals 104. Let's see what problem we should do next. What other math topics are there? We can do some circles questions. I actually like this one. Okay, so it's talking about a circle, has its center at -4, comma -6, and line K is tangent to the circle at the point -7, comma -7. So that's going to be like -4, -6, 6. Then we have -7. -7 is going to be like right here. So the line is tangent right here. Line is tangent at -7, comma -7. Okay, so how do we figure this out? We could use Desmos, but I think one of our requests was to try to do it without a calculator. So one thing that I might do is I could try to find the distance, or I could even find the slope between these 2 points. So like from the tangent point to the center of the circle, I could find the slope of that line and then take a perpendicular line because tangent lines are always perpendicular to the circle. So our original slope, thanks for doing this. Yeah, of course. I'm glad to help you guys out. Original slope is difference in the y values divided by the difference in the x values. That's going to simplify to 1 over 3. Let me call this the original slope. And then the tangent line slope is going to be the negative reciprocal, right? Because we want to make a perpendicular line. So that's just going to be, we take 1/3 and we convert it into -3, -3 over 1. And that matches up with answer choice A. Jump to conclusions too quickly. I mean, yeah, one thing you can do at the end is check your work. So if you see something like -1/3, it's hard to draw it to scale, but you can see -1/3 would be more like here. And yeah, I didn't even draw this to scale. But the distance here is much more than the distance here vertically. Wait, nah. It's kind of hard to do it visually because you're kind of freehanding it. So if you want, you could check your work, for example, now in Desmos. Like I could put the circle that's centered at -4 and -6 and give it a certain radius. I could then make the tangent line that goes through the point -7, comma -7, so y minus -7 is equal to mx minus, and if I give this circle just a good enough radius that it kind of aligns there, you can see that a slope of something like -1/3 would cut through the circle, versus a slope of something like -3 would be more tangent to the circle. Let's do a couple more problems here. This is a similar type of problem. A circle in the xy plane has equation x plus 3 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 25. Which of the following points does not lie in the interior of the circle? So one trick that you can do here is actually plug in the points into the equation. I'll show you guys what I mean. Like if I plug this one in, then I would get something like -7 plus 3 squared, 3 minus 1 squared. And that equals to what? Negative 4 squared is 16, plus 2 squared is 4, so equals 20. And that's less than 25. So the point that we just plugged in is less than the radius of 25. Or sorry, the r squared term of 25. So it should be within the interior of the circle. If you plug in negative 3 comma 1, it equals 0, which is less than 25. If you plug in 0, 0, that's going to be uh, 10, which is less than 25. If I plug in 3 comma 2, well, I get 3 plus 3 is 6, squared is 36, plus 1 squared is 37. 37 is greater than 25, so answer choice D, the point 3 comma 2 is on the exterior, outside the circle. Again, you can plug this into Desmos if you want to verify. Like I can plug in x plus 3 squared, y minus 1 squared equals 25. And I can plug in something like 3 comma 2, and I see it's outside of the circle compared to something like negative 7 comma 3. Move on to the next. Any other topics you guys want to cover tonight? Done some trig, circles, reading, central ideas, inferences, analyzing, research type stuff. That's very general, historical. Maybe I know what you mean. There's some questions on the SAT that do rhetorical synthesis. So let me show you what I mean. More trigonometry. Yeah, we can do more trig questions. So this is a rhetorical synthesis type question. You have a set of notes and you're trying to use the notes to accomplish some kind of rhetorical goal. For example, this student wants to present the primary aim of a research study. So you have to, most of the time you have to read the notes. Sometimes you can actually get by without reading the notes because some of these answers just don't mention a primary aim of a research study. That's kind of how you can game the SAT, I guess. But what I see here is like answer choice A tells us what the team wanted to do. They wanted to better understand the mechanics behind bird nests' uniquely flexible yet cohesive structural properties. That seems like a primary aim of a research study. And I also see that supported by bullet point number 2. That's actually kind of restating bullet point number 2. Something like B doesn't present the primary aim. B more talks about, like B was mentioned in the notes, but B is talking about kind of the design of the experiment. C talks about like carrying through the experiment. And D is talking about like results of experiment. So A is the only one that, like all of these may be factually true, but A is the one that talks about the primary aim of the research study. Do another, that type of question. Ooh. Same thing, student takes some notes, and now we have to do something with the notes. So I always read this part first. The student wants to introduce Katherine Halverson's book to an audience already familiar with the Atlantic Monthly. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? We want to introduce the book to an audience already familiar with the Atlantic Monthly, um, which was also published by this same author, so I guess historian. So A says Katherine Halverson's Faraway Women and the Atlantic Monthly discuss female authors. That doesn't introduce. I mean, yeah, that does talk about her book, but they're already familiar with the Atlantic Monthly. Um, Although, no, I won't rule that one out just yet. A magazine called the Atlantic Monthly, referred to in Catherine Halverson's book title, was first published in 1857. Yeah, this one doesn't introduce the book at all, so I actually just rule out B. Faraway Women in the Atlantic Monthly features contributors to the Atlantic Monthly, first published in 1857 as a magazine. Uh, yeah, so this one does introduce the book, Faraway Women in the Atlantic Monthly. Um, let's keep A and C for now. And an author discussed by Catherine Harrison, Catherine Halverson is Juanita Harrison, whose autobiography appeared in the Atlantic Monthly in 18. Okay, so this doesn't talk about the book. So we're between A and C here. The Atlantic Monthly was a magazine, and so it seems like if you're assuming people are already familiar with that, with the Atlantic Monthly, you can say Catherine Halverson's Faraway Women and the Atlantic Monthly discusses female authors whose autobiographies appeared in the magazine in the early 1900s. So, like, this is assuming you're already familiar with that. So it looks like A is going to be our best choice here. C um, doesn't really introduce it as well as A does. C assumes that they're unfamiliar with the Atlantic Monthly. It kind of expands upon what the Atlantic Monthly is, but we are assuming that the audience is already familiar. Okay. Let's do like one more of these type of reading problems. Well, we do SAT. We do all sorts of SAT questions, so it's up to you guys to request topics. I'll move probably into some more trig questions next because that's what people have been. I've seen some messages for trig questions. But this one says a student wants to emphasize a difference between the two books. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? Yeah, someone's asking what subject. This is reading, writing on the SAT, specifically rhetorical synthesis. I want to emphasize a difference between two books. So what are the two books? The interesting narrative of the life of the Oleda Equiano and The Jungle. So this one's an autobiography. This one is fictional work. Um, Actually, I see that already in answer choice A. Maybe that's what they're looking for. Let's just make sure that none of them other choices work. They may have written about different topics, but they both influence readers. It's not very specific. Difference between the two books. So C is talking about the difference between the results of the books, and D is just talking about a similarity that they had. Yeah, A is the best choice here because it gives us a clear and specific detail that emphasizes a difference between the two books. Okay, so going back to some of our trig problems, I'm sure you guys will breeze right through these. We have a triangle ABC is a right triangle, and sine of B is 5 over 13. What is the length of side BC? Why don't we try to get some answers in the chat here? Okay, I'm gonna start solving it out. So, side length BC. Well, I know sine of B is 5 over 13. So, if we think back to SOH CAH TOA, it means the sine relates the opposite side with the hypotenuse. So this side is 5, this side is 13. Not exactly their side lengths, but the side length ratios. So the actual side length here can be what? Well, if this is 26 as a side length and the ratio is 13 to 5, I see that that is exactly the actual side length is double what the ratio is, double the value. So the actual side length would be 10. And then it's asking for the side length of BC. So we have to do one more step, and you could probably use you probably have to use a Pythagorean theorem here. But I know that this is a 5, 12, and 13 special or Pythagorean triple. If you didn't know that, that is going to make this 24. You could also use Pythagorean theorem and do the square root of 26 squared minus 10 squared. And that should get you like square root of 576, which is 24. Let me just make sure I got that right. Yeah. So side length BC is going to be 24. Okay, this one, oh, this one looks too easy. I think I did this one before. Let's try this one. Why did I multiply them by 2? Well, we were given the side length ratios, right? 13 to 5. But the actual side length that we're given was double what the ratio value was. It's 26. So in order to get the actual side length, I just have to multiply the ratios by 2. In their simplest forms, the side lengths form ratios equivalent to 13, 5, and 12, but the actual side lengths that they're looking for have a different value. Oh man, if you can send that picture in a little bit better quality, like a screenshot, I can throw it in here. But I'm going to cover this next problem for now. Giving us side lengths of a right triangle, RST. All right, peace out, Emmanuel. TP. Triangle RST is similar to triangle UVW. S corresponds to V, T corresponds to W. What's the value of tan W? Let's draw this out. RST. We know that from R to S. Well, first, what's the longest side? Longest side is TR. So if I draw R, S, T, from T to R is 584. That's the hypotenuse. Then we can draw our right angle here. RS is 440. ST is 384. Now we have a similar triangle. RST is similar to UVW. So S corresponds to V and T corresponds to W. So it's going to look something like this. What is the value of tan W? If you remember SOHCAH TOA, we know that tan is relating the opposite side to the adjacent side. And since they're similar triangles, we can use the same side length ratios. That opposite is 440 relative to angle W, and the adjacent is 384. So how do we simplify that? I don't know. But these answers might give us some clue. I could also throw it into calculator, and that's about 1.145. Then I can check which answers match. But what I can also do is I'm just going to divide everything by 4 to start, because it looks like 384 should be divisible by 4. Yes, and 440 is divisible by 4. So if we simplify that one step, we get 110 over 96. We can simplify that. Now it looks like everything is still divisible by 2, so what I do is simplify one more step and get 55 over 48. And that matches up with answer choice C. Uh, yeah, answer choice D. Even I fall for the traps that the SAT puts. If you're not reading carefully enough, you'll pick the wrong answer. All right, why don't we do a couple more trig questions since I think everybody's loving trigonometry. What did I get on the SAT? I got a 1540 or on my first attempt, and I retook it and got a 1570. And now I'm going to take the digital test as a tutor, and I hope I get a 1600. But there's always some element of chance. How old am I? I just graduated. I'm 22. Okay, I see someone submitting some questions. Yeah, you can. It's so weird. You can keep retaking the test even like after you graduate college. I don't know why they do that, but I guess like to I'm a SAT tutor, and tutors kind of take the test to stay up on their game, so I don't want to fall behind the other guys. Anyways, I'm studying using this prep platform that I just built. If you guys want to try it out, you can go to adaptolearn.academy, and it kind of just gives you like the next best question based on a combination of factors, but mostly like which questions you're weakest on. So this is where I get most of my questions, where I review like I prep for the SAT. Yeah, you can super score SAT scores. That's maybe what you're talking about. But and just focus on one section each time. But I feel like it's better to just take it in one sitting for your peace of mind. We got a couple more questions here. This one says a right triangle with legs length 24 centimeters and 21 centimeters. So 24, 24, and 21. And the hypotenuse can be written as 3 square root of d. What is the value of d? Well, let's just apply Pythagorean theorem here. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Then we know 21 squared plus 24 squared is equal to 3 root d, that whole quantity squared. So what is 21 plus 24 squared? I actually don't know. So 21 squared plus 24 squared is 1017. And then 3 square root of d squared is going to be 9d. So divide everything by 9, and we isolate d. Very quickly, we can get that d equals 113. I didn't do that one in my head. I actually remembered the answer. Will I teach you things? Yeah, keep coming to Tutor Tuesday and submit your questions. I see I have room for one more question. I think someone submitted this one, so let's go over this. Not exactly like SAT stuff, but it tests similar skills. Find equations of both tangent lines that go through the point 3 comma negative 2 and are tangent to the curve x squared minus 7. Why don't we visualize this problem first? And we have the point 3 comma negative 2. So it's two tangent lines. It looks like maybe one is going to be over here and passing through this point, and another one is going to be maybe... Oh, good question. I don't know. I don't know where the other tangent line would be. Maybe I have to just solve it out. So if it's tangent to this curve, wait, is this a calculus question? Because I don't see how to do it algebraically. But I know that we could find the derivative f prime of x as 2x. Then we know that it has to pass through this point here. If it's tangent to the curve, so if it's tangent to the curve, that it's going to pass, it's going to have a point on the curve, which means that the x, y coordinate is going to be x comma f of x, or that's going to be represented to x and then x squared minus 7. So I could maybe try to represent this in point slope form, like y minus y naught is equal to m x minus x naught. Uh, I know that the oh, maybe I didn't even need this. I don't know. So like my x naught, y naught in this equation is going to be 3 comma negative 2, what they're giving me. So y minus negative 2 is equal to m. The slope is 2x, and it's x minus uh, 3. Y plus 2 equals 2x, x minus 3. Oh, did I do this right? Because this is not a linear equation. So why don't I plug it into Desmos? That'll give me a clue. Well, I found one of the tangent lines. Oh, maybe the other tangent line is gonna hit up here. I found the values of h here that will fit. It's gonna be 1 and 5, but we kind of have to prove this. So the slope here is 2x. Man, I don't know. If you want to graph it out, you can definitely find this pretty easily. It's going to be y equals 2x minus 3 minus 2. Y equals 2 times 5 times x minus 3. These look like the two equations, but I'm not sure how to piece the information together. We have in order to be tangent to this curve, they have to pass through that function, which means the point's going to look something like this. And it's going to also pass through this curve right here. But no, I'm interested in seeing the mathematical derivation of this. Maybe I can plug in like this point here. Or maybe I can get the tangent to that curve, like kind of subtracts the y values and then the x values, get a slope. Okay, I'm going to try one more thing. If we take these values for y and we take these values for x, what I've done is I've taken a difference between this point and this function, and I've set this equal to 2x, because that's what the slope. No, that's the slope of the tangent curve. So the slope could be actually different. So that doesn't seem like it's going to work. So let's just leave it at that, since we're basically at the end of the session. Someone got some answers? Yeah, we can check. I'm getting, I got the different answers, I think. I'm getting y equals 2x minus 8 for one of the lines. That looks like it passes, it's tangent and it passes through the point. So y equals 2x minus 8. And what's the other one? Y equals 10x minus 30, or minus 32. Yeah. So these would be the two equations that pass through the point and are tangent to the curve. Yeah. Yeah, we're right at the end of the session. We'll do this again next week for sure. We got through all the questions here today. But if you guys want, I post all the recordings on my YouTube, and you can check it out on explore.danstestprep.com. Also, if you guys want access to my SAT prep platform, Adapt to Learn, just DM me. My DMs are open. Or you can log in here and I'm interested in hearing you guys' feedback because I'm using this to prep for the SAT and I'm trying to improve it constantly. So it's adaptolearn.academy. Let me paste it in here. Feel free to DM me with your feedback. I always listen to your guys' changes or try to implement your changes. Always looking for more testers. But yeah, thanks for joining, guys. I'll see you next week.